On today's show, I'm breaking down who's going to make the Rangers opening day roster. A little bit of very good news about Jacob deGrom and his recovery from what was not actually Tommy John surgery. And a little bit of talk about the Rangers' spring breakout prospect roster being revealed. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 10 seasons, including all 5 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into today's episode, this show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Now, this is version 2 of my opening day roster projection. Seems like version 1 was not quite up to snuff. I have already been proven wrong with some of the players who have been sent to minor league camp. We'll talk a little bit about that after I unveil who is going to, for sure, definitely be right this time, making the Rangers opening day roster. Now, I have very little, actually, I believe no changes to the position player group that I picked initially. I feel like this is going to be spot on the money. There might be one change there. But at this point, I'm feeling pretty good about my initial projection. The infielders on this opening day roster: Nathaniel Lowe, Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, Josh Young, and then, of course, backing them up will be Ezekiel Duran and Josh Smith. Both of those guys have had a very, very good spring so far in Duran and Smith. I've been so impressed with what they've done in the spring. Not only, the numbers they're putting up, but the defense that they're playing and the approach that they're showing as well. Zeke Duran has been a much more patient hitter, and that is a very, very good thing for Zeke Duran. We all know that he can hit the absolute snot out of the baseball, but last year definitely got a little bit too aggressive at times, and it's kind of why he lost some of his playing time down the back end and did not end up making the Rangers playoff roster until he was an injury replacement for Adolis Garcia in that World Series. Josh Smith was a solid player for the Rangers all year long, and I think both those guys, if they're your backup super utility guys, probably mainly infield because of the question marks about how healthy Corey Seager is going to be for the duration of this season. I think those guys put you in such a great spot. In terms of catchers, this one is about as easy as the infield. It's pretty much a lock between Jonah Heim and Andrew Knizner. Both those guys are going to be the Rangers catchers. There is not much of a doubt about that. Andrew Knapp has played a little bit more than I expected in spring training, but I think that's more because the Rangers are slow playing Jonah Heim, trying to keep him healthy for the duration of the season. It is a long season if you are a catcher, and catching as many games as Jonah Heim has the past few years, they are trying to keep him healthy, and it might be a slower start to the season than we've usually seen from Jonah Heim, because usually he's an absolute monster offensively out of the gates early on, and then as the season wears on, it takes a little bit more wear and tear on him. So having a solid backup like Andrew Knizner, I think, will be helpful. In the outfield, Evan Carter, Leody Taveras, Adolis Garcia, Wyatt Langford. Feel pretty solid about those picks. Now, there was a very nice feature in D Magazine about Wyatt Langford and talking with Rangers officials about what will go into the decision of whether he's ready to be in the big leagues on day one or not. And one of the quotes I found interesting about that is that if they say he's not, they said if he's not willing, I believe there's Ross Finstermaker, the assistant GM, that said if Wyatt's not ready to play every day defensively in a big league capacity, then he is not going to start the season on the opening day roster. But they said pretty much offensively, what we all kind of know is that, yeah, this guy's ready to hit big league pitching right now. He still has some work to go defensively, having just converted to the outfield as a sophomore in college. So just 2 seasons of the outfield and then part of a minor league season this year in the outfield. He's such an athletic kid. I can't imagine that it takes him that long. And I can't imagine that really will be why they hold him down. He's obviously the best option for the Rangers at DH, and I think there will be a lot of splitting time at DH for all four of those outfielders that are going to cycle in and out. Adolis Garcia will probably see some more time at DH. We'll see some more off days for Leo Taveras and for Evan Carter, I think, and Wyatt Langford will play the field a decent amount. I don't think he'll play a whole lot in center field, but I'm pretty sure he'll be playing a decent chunk of left field, maybe even some right field. But this position player group seems set. The only question there is the everyday DH. I think right now it's going to be primarily Wyatt Langford, but if the Rangers do decide that it's not going to be him, I feel like at this point the leader in the clubhouse is, if it's not going to be Justin Foscue, who I think could also be pretty solid as a Rangers everyday DH. I've been very, very impressed with what I have seen from Jared Walsh this spring. He is a guy who's been an all-star in the past and definitely has that aptitude in him. Neurological issues have, really, really sidetracked him the last couple of years, as well as some other injuries. And he went to the Rangers because he said, this team knows how to get the best out of its hitters, and even if I don't end up making the Major League club, I had an awful season last year, so he wanted to go see if there was some magic dust that he could learn from the Rangers hitting coaching staff, which has done wonders for this team, especially for Adolis Garcia, the transformation he made last year. He was a completely different hitter, and we saw how good this offense was overall last year, top to bottom. He thought he could get in on that and help him kind of reignite his career, which I think is a smart move by him. And who knows, it could end up paying dividends in him getting some plate appearances, some opening day roster, at least consideration as the Rangers opening day DH. Now let's look at the rotation. I think that I feel pretty confident in the five that I picked to start the season as the Rangers opening day rotation. Nathan Eovaldi, John Gray, Andrew Heaney, Dane Dunning, Cody Bradford as that number 5 starter. Thankfully, all the Rangers starting pitchers look pretty good. They look like they are going to be ready for opening day, especially Nate Eovaldi, has looked so good early on in spring training. Andrew Heaney still knocking some of the dust off, same with John Gray, and we've seen Dane Dunning break out a new pitch, the forkball, which is a nice compliment. I talked about that earlier on this week, and Cody Bradford has looked really, really solid this spring. I think there's definitely some questions about him as the Rangers' number 5 starter. I think that his biggest competition at this point is Jose Urena, who might end up making the opening day roster. I'm still not quite sold just yet on Urena, but if he continues to look this good in the spring, he looked pretty solid in today's game, Thursday. I have been impressed with what he did. And if he's not on the opening day roster, then if the Rangers can stash him in AAA as some depth, if they do need some added depth, somebody to just take a start, to give the rest of the rotation an extra day, I think that could be a very, very valuable thing for this club. Danny Duffy could also be under consideration. I think that Jack Leiter might still somehow be under consideration, but I don't know that I would feel very good about Jack Leiter starting opening day in this rotation at this point. Still hopeful, still a believer in Jack Leiter in the future, but for the start of the season, I'm not quite there yet. As for this bullpen, I feel pretty confident in these picks. Jose Leclerc, David Robertson, Josh Boers, Kirby Yates. Those 4 are all but guaranteed. They are guaranteed to start the season at the big league level. I think Brock Burke is going to be the primary lefty in high leverage situations. I think Jonathan Hernandez we're going to see a decent chunk of. And then the final 2 spots in this bullpen, I think they go to Mark Church and Diego Castillo. Those guys have been used quite a bit early on in spring training, and everybody in spring training is just raving about Mark Church. He's been able to go multiple innings. Now, the only question with this bullpen and with this, conglomeration of a bullpen, I think Diego Castillo would be my last cut. And if it was him that's getting cut, if you want to go with a more traditional long reliever, because I don't think Castillo is going to give you 3-4 innings if one of your starters has a blow-up outing, I think that Jose Urena would probably be the first choice there to come in and give you multiple innings and if it's not him, if it's not Arena, then I think it would be Cody Bradford because Arena would be in that rotation. So I think that Arena is really impressed this spring training. I think Duffy has looked pretty solid as well. Some of the other non-roster invitees, Chase and Shreve, they've gotten a pretty good look at. I'm not that sold on him. I'm surprised that Antoine Kelly didn't get more of a look in big league camp. At this point, I think he just had one appearance. But coming up, we're talking about some of the guys who did get sit down to minor league camp, a little bit about a new procedure coined by the Rangers doctor, and a little bit more about the prospect spring breakout game. Coming up right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Factor Meals. Eating better is easy with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to go in just 2 minutes. You'll have over 35 options to choose from every week, including Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Also, there's more than 60 add-ons to help you try and stay fueled up and feeling good all day long. What are you waiting for? Get started today and get after your goals. They got pancakes, smoothies, and more. You can discover a wide variety of easy options for the entire day, like breakfast, midday bites, and more. There's no prep, no mess meals. Factor meals are ready to heat and eat, so there's no prepping, cooking, or cleanup needed. Sign up today and save. We've done the math. Factor is less expensive than takeout, and every meal is dietitian approved to be nutritious and delicious. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnMLB50 and use code LockedOnMLB50 to get 50% off. That's code LockedOnMLB50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnMLB50 to get 50% off. Now, the Rangers made the second round of cuts for their spring training roster, and some of the cuts surprised me. Honestly, guys who I thought were going to be given a much better look at a chance to crack this rotation did not quite get that opportunity, and they have been already banished back to minor league camp. Now, those first two are Zach Kent and Owen White. They have both been optioned to AAA Round Rock. That was surprising, very surprising to me. I thought both of those guys would get a much better look at a spot in that rotation, mainly just the number 5 spot, or just we'd see them a little bit more often. Owen White we saw in several A-game spring training games, and it was not great, to put it mildly, from Owen White. So at that point, I don't really, after the last game that he had, the last outing where he just was not effective, the velocity was more back where you were hoping it would be, but just not quite to the range of where it was back in 2022, which is what the hope was for Owen White, is just get that velo back into the mid 90s, not the kind of low to mid 90s, but touched all the way as high as 98 back when he was fully healthy and fully right, and he hasn't quite been back there. I believe he topped out at around 95 this spring so far of what I've seen, sitting around 93, 94, which is solid, but not quite to the point where he was a couple years ago, which is what the Rangers are hoping for from him. Zach Kent had a injury plagued season last year, just was not able to get the amount of innings and the amount of reps in that you would have liked to seen from him. I thought if he was healthy last season, he definitely could have helped the Rangers as maybe a 6th starter, maybe taking some of those innings that Cody Bradford ended up eating, but that's not how it shook out for him. I think the Rangers are still a little gun-shy about putting him into this major league pen at this point. I thought he was going to crack the opening day roster as the Rangers' depth option of a long reliever, but that's not the case for him. Also, Emiliano Teodo and Grant Wolfram, both of them were reassigned to minor league camp. So much for my hope for Emiliano Teodo cracking the opening day roster. That would have been a long shot, but I think that the Rangers are going to try and keep him as a starting pitcher, even though they put him as in the bullpen back in the Arizona Fall League, and we saw him, not start any games, not pitch a whole lot of innings this spring training, at least at the A level. But I think the Rangers are going to keep him as a starter for as long as they can. And with those moves, the Rangers have 60 players in their spring training roster. They have 37 players on that 40-man roster. Just something to keep an eye on in case there are hopefully some openings that the Rangers might need to fill with some free agent signings, or just one free agent signing in particular. I'm so sick of talking about it. I'm not even going to say his name until he's signed somewhere. That's you guys know who I'm talking about. The big tall lefty who used to be on the Rangers and for some reason is not yet in a major league spring training camp. But enough about that. Let's talk about some injury updates. Josh Young is doing well. He is hitting. He is taking fielding drills, and hopefully at some point this weekend, I believe that is the plan. The hope was maybe as soon as Wednesday. That was back on Monday. That Wednesday was maybe a point where we could see Josh Young in a spring training game DHing. That has not happened as of yet, as of Thursday night. But hopefully either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, we could start to see Josh Young in some spring training games. Looks like he is going to be ready for opening day if he continues his progress at this point, which is very, very encouraging. And Adolis Garcia, who was being slow played in his spring training ramp up. Of course, he hits a home run in his very first game in the Cactus League, because why wouldn't he? He also hit a double today, was a late addition to the Rangers A-game roster because they were going to try and play that one a little bit more aggressively, actually getting it in because of all the weather that's going on. He was initially scheduled, I believe, to play in the B game. That one ended up getting rained out, or not quite rained out, but it was just more of a live BP session than an actual game rep. So the Rangers wanted to get some actual game reps, so hence the late addition to the A-game roster. Now, there was a nice feature, a very long, very well-written feature in the Dallas Morning News written by Evan Grant, talking with Dr. Keith Meister, the Rangers team doctor, the aficionado, the main man when it comes to elbow surgeries. Now that James Andrews is out of the game, it is Keith Meister's game. All those Tommy Johns that are actually not a traditional Tommy John surgery happening as much anymore. One of the things that he talked about in that article, Evan Grant, talking with Dr. Keith Meister, is that he has perfected, maybe not quite perfected, but is definitely on his way, pioneering this kind of new surgery that is not a traditional Tommy John surgery, but more of a brace, a combination of two different types of surgeries on reconstruction from a torn UCL, which used to be just Tommy John surgery and is so incredibly common. And this is a surgery, this new type of surgery, it provides a little bit more reinforcement for the elbow so that when these pitchers do come back, you don't have to see them have as many Tommy John surgeries, or UCL repair surgeries, which is good. Out of about 300 surgeries that he has done, there's been about a 1% failure rate. So that is a very, very good rate, as opposed to having to see guys come back and have another Tommy John surgery not much after they had their first. Usually once you have a second Tommy John surgery, it's 3 strikes and you're out. Pun fully intended. We saw it, the worst case of this, of someone having their second Tommy John surgery really quickly after that. That was Cole Reagan's. Because literally his first time on the mound after recovering fully from that first Tommy John surgery, the man blew out his elbow and had to have another Tommy John surgery, which is why I was so happy the fact that he even got back on the mound and was pitching and was healthy and ended up, what he's done since then has been absolutely astounding, and I am very happy for Cole Reagans. Wish him all the success in the world and wish it was with the Rangers. But hey, this is the thing that happens. It happens a lot. Pitchers' elbows blow out a lot. And one of the things that was really encouraging is this lower failure rate, and more encouraging because this was the new type of surgery that was done on Jacob deGrom, which is why they didn't call it a Tommy John surgery at the time. There's also a lot of mystery and vagueness about whatever surgery Shohei Ohtani had to repair his UCL. They did not call that Tommy John surgery. So I'm thinking he might have had a similar surgery as to what Jacob deGrom had. deGrom was interviewed in this article talking about what the decision was like to go with this type of surgery and the encouraging signs that he has seen. He is on track to hopefully come back at some point in August, and I'm thinking and hoping that this can be the last elbow surgery we have to have for Jacob deGrom. Whenever he comes back, he can just be fully healthy, and we can get 3 full seasons of a healthy Jacob deGrom, and maybe 4 postseason runs for him. I mean, we'll see, but it's encouraging signs from him. Go check out that article. There's a lot more details in there. And one of the other details that I found very, very fascinating was when he was talking with Keith Meister about pitch types and pitch, construction and all the new, designer pitches. Pitch designing was the phrase that he used, and how much of a killer that is on some of these elbows and causing more of this uptick in elbow injuries from these young pitchers and older pitchers as well. One of the pitch types that is the worst at leading to these higher injury rates is the sweeper, the modified, more horizontal type of slider that has kind of been taking the game by storm the last couple years. It's one of the pitches that Ohtani throws the most, which I found kind of interesting that he's been able to hold up as well as he has, throwing that pitch that often. And it's something that he preaches to the Rangers front office, and he is screaming about it. Like, this pitch, while it might be very effective, it is murder on the elbow. So the Rangers have listened, and they do not throw the sweeper very much at all. In fact, the only two guys that were in the organization that threw a sweeper, they are no longer in the organization, though that's more due to other reasons than just the Rangers not throwing it. But John Gray used to throw the sweeper quite a bit in 2022, really toned that down back in 2023, and the Rangers throw it the least amount of times compared to every other Major League team. So just some interesting little nuggets there. Hopefully we will see Corey Seager at some point this spring. That was another positive update we got from him. And I was hoping today we would hear something more about Max Scherzer. This was supposed to be a day that we would know a little bit more about the update on his rehab and if he is really going to be ready for at some point in June to return to the mound, but I have heard nothing more about that, unfortunately. But coming up, we're talking about MLB The Show's rankings, a little bit about this spring breakout roster, and these beautiful champion gold uniforms that the Rangers are busting out as the reigning champs for this year. Right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewers experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Amazon Fire Stick you can plug directly into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball, college basketball tournament, or you're going to want to have a Fire TV, no matter what it is. So Fire TV has recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes us over at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues, college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the games, game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on the latest in the world of sports. March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. The Rangers have some new uniforms this year they will be rocking to start the season. A gold trim uniform with gold caps that looks absolutely gorgeous. Now, you may be asking, okay, why are the Rangers wearing gold? What's going on with that? That gold is not part of their color scheme. Gold does not make any sense. But this is a tradition that I had not noticed around Major League Baseball, but apparently it's been going on since 2005. This is a new uniform type that the Rangers will be rocking because they are, in case you forgot, the reigning World Series champs. This is a tradition that was started by the 2005 Red Sox, where the defending World Series champs will have a gold trim outline around their uniforms, a specific type of uniform. Unfortunately, the Rangers won't be wearing these all year long. I kind of wish they were, because these white uniforms with the gold trim might be my favorite uniforms ever. Not just because it's the Rangers, saying, hey, look, we're reigning World Series champs. I mean, that's definitely a large part of it, if not most of it. But they just look so incredibly good. Now, it'll only be 6 games where the Rangers are wearing these uniforms. It will be opening day weekend, March 28th, 30th, and 31st against the Cubs. These are their white home uniforms. This is just a different iteration of it. The next time they will be wearing it is April 10th against the A's, then May 14th against the Guardians, and June 4th against the Tigers. Now, I kind of wish that they would bust out these uniforms against the teams that they beat in the playoffs, as well as opening day. I think that would be nice incentive, a nice little just twist of the knife, mainly just because I want to wear them against the Astros, not against the Tigers and the Guardians and the A's. Like, it's like, oh, cool, look at us gloating that we're reigning champs against, 3 of the teams who, well, I don't expect to be very good this year. Guardians will be scrappy because their pitching staff is good, but their offense is good. And the A's are, well, I mean, we all know the A's. maybe the Tigers will be scrappy enough and better than I expect this year. But still, would have liked to have seen the Rangers bust those out against those Orioles whose future is so incredibly bright that John Smoltz loves so much, or maybe against the Rays who the Rangers went into their home and stomped them, or maybe the Astros who the Rangers happened to topple in the World Series, or maybe against the Diamondbacks, or in the ALCS, and maybe the Diamondbacks who the Rangers beat in that World Series. But these jerseys look so incredibly good, and they go on sale on March 21st. A happy birthday present to me. Very excited about that. We'll probably end up making that part of my birthday routine. If anyone wants to buy me a hat, Mom, Dad, if you're listening, just so you know, let's get that sorted out. But there is a little bit more news coming from this week. We got to find out who the highest rated MLB The Show player on the Rangers roster, the top 5. Those were announced on a live stream on Twitch, and it was also on MLB TV, which is kind of interesting. Who the Rangers' top 5 rated players are in MLB The Show. The newest version comes out in a couple of weeks, a little bit before the season starts. But the Rangers' top 5 players, not really a surprise of who's here, but the ratings surprised me just a little bit. Corey Seager is the Rangers' top-rated player at 98 overall. Adolis Garcia making a big old jump to the Rangers' second-best player at 93 overall. Solid. Jacob deGrom coming in at 92 overall. Marcus Semien at 90 overall, which felt very disrespectful to the guy who finished third in MVP voting to have him just 90 overall and fourth best on his team. And Max Scherzer, the Rangers' fifth best player at 87 overall. We've not seen any other reveals of who else is ranked where. I think I'm most curious about how highly they'll rate Evan Carter, how highly they'll rate Wyatt Langford. I am very excited to just have their pronunciations in the name, because on my MLB The Show dynasty that I am creating of my franchise mode, they don't have the last name pronunciation Carter, so I had to go with Carver or Garver, and they don't have Langford in there, so just kind of going with the flow on that. And also, somehow Bruce Bochy wasn't in last year's game. Don't really understand what was happening there. They had past iterations of Bruce Bochy, so bringing him back into the game because he is a Major League manager would have made sense. Maybe there was some kind of life rights issue with that, but hoping we can get all of those pronunciations in there. Hopefully we can get a higher rating for Marcus Semien than just a 90 overall. And maybe Corey Seager finally gets that bump to 99 overall. Now, the last bit of news from this week is the Rangers' spring breakout rosters. The spring breakout is a new trend that is happening this spring training, where teams will send some of their highest rated prospects. We were concerned. I was interested to see who the Rangers were actually going to end up sending to this spring breakout. This is the first time that they have done it. I thought that maybe we might see Evan Carter or Wyatt Langford on there. I thought they'd be really funny if we saw Evan Carter, who just was hitting third in the World Series last we saw him, playing in a spring breakout showcase for prospects when he was just showcased on the biggest stage in baseball. But neither of those two are on the Rangers spring breakout roster. Pretty much everybody on this roster, though, is a top 30 prospect according to MLB Pipeline. The only exceptions are Liam Hicks and Jonathan Ornelas, who I thought maybe were at least fringe candidates to be top 30 players. But some of the headliners are Brock Porter, Jack Leiter is going to be there as well, Owen White, Emiliano Teodo. I'm also really excited to see Sebastian Walcott on there, Justin Foscue, Abimelec Ortiz. Anthony Gutierrez will be on there as well as Echedri Vargas. Very excited to see him. Have not seen a whole lot of Echedri Vargas, but that was kind of interesting there. Also, what was kind of interesting to me was when MLB Pipeline finally broke out their top 30 Rangers prospect rankings. It felt like it was so much later than everybody else's top 30 prospect rankings. Not a whole lot of, head turners there. Justin Foscue at number 5 I thought was kind of interesting. Kumar Rocker at 6 was very interesting to me, but top 4 is the same as literally everywhere else, of Evan Carter, Wyatt Langford, Sebastian Walcott, Brock Porter, with Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford being kind of interchangeable at this point. But some of the names that were lower on there, the Rangers top signing the highest money they spent on any international prospect this year, Paulino Santana. He is a outfielder, a right-handed hitter, who the Rangers signed the number 2 prospect in the 2024 January class, $2.975 million out of the Dominican Republic, which that was the number 2 prospect, got $1.2 million. Interesting, but he was at number 14 in this Rangers top 30 prospect rankings. Another guy who really I thought was interesting that he made it onto this list or stayed on this list was Dane Acker. The Rangers have been very high on him internally, but the results just haven't been there. The health just hasn't been there. The raw stuff is very encouraging, but the man is 24 years old and is still in AA. So I didn't have him even really consider him for my top 30. So I think this is more of a sign of how high the Rangers are on him. Joseph Montalvo, who is a 21-year-old who hasn't pitched a whole lot, just 2 minor league seasons so far, 23 and a third innings in rookie ball in 2022, then was okay in Down East at 95 innings there. I did not consider him for my top 30, but interesting that the Rangers are very high on him. And one guy from the 2023 draft, actually, well, besides Wyatt Langford, a second player from the Rangers 2023 draft class. I don't know how I missed this name on draft day, but this might be the most elite name in the Rangers' entire minor league system. Actually, there were quite a few really great January signings that had great names. But of the Rangers draft picks for the last few years, Isaac Tiger. Isaac spelled a little differently, I-Z-A-C-K, but Tiger spelled, well, it's spelled like tiger. This guy is a 23-year-old who the Rangers drafted in the 2023 draft, a 7th round pick, 201st overall. He had a pretty solid season last year, not a whole lot of time, but just 3 games where he pitched in, 4 innings, 7 hits, 4 strikeouts, a 2.25 ERA. But Rangers are high on him, a right-handed pitcher out of junior college, named like Isaac Tiger. How can you go wrong with a prospect like that? But that is going to do it for this week's editions of Locked On Rangers. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And I have a few more guests next week, having Grant Schiller on to talk about what he saw in the spring. Hopefully a crossover with the Locked On Angels boys talking about Ron Washington getting another managerial position. And who knows what else we might get. Maybe some news about a certain tall lefty signing somewhere, whether it's here or whether it is not here. That's going to do it for this week. Thank y'all so much for listening, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.